Okay, so vaginitis, an inflammation of the vagina, is one of the most common female clinical disorders, and it is the reason for 1/3 of gynecology clinic visits. Most women will experience at least one episode of vaginitis during their lifetime, and some experience more than 4 episodes each year. Vaginitis is a general diagnostic for 7 different conditions, both infectious and non-infectious. Half of the women who seek for physician's help are misdiagnosed and receives wrong treatment, which leads to a vicious cycle of repeated visits, consumptions of wrong medications, health complications, continuous suffering, and huge redundant expenses to payers. Since it is a collective of 7 different conditions, vaginitis is hard to diagnose. Laboratory diagnostic alternatives do not cover all the conditions. They consume time and money, and many physicians just use an educated guess to diagnose their patients. Gyntools is solving this problem with Gini, the first point-of-care diagnostic system that accurately diagnoses all vaginitis conditions within minutes. The system has 4 elements: a vaginal discharge disposable collector, a tabletop small scanner, a web-based user interface that can be operated from any laptop or smartphone, and a machine learning automated algorithm on the cloud. In our recent clinical trials, we achieved fantastic diagnostic accuracy, I must say. The benefits to patients, caregivers, and payers are clear. Gini saves time, money, and allows the optimal care on spot. We offer a strong competitive advantage over current solutions. Gini is the only tool that automatically diagnosed all 7 conditions within minutes and in a cost-effective manner by any caregiver. We have a clear regulatory pathway in Europe, United States, and Israel. We're already ISO 13485 certified, and Gini is CE marked and registered in the EU and Israel. We intend to start sales in Israel and Switzerland in the 3rd quarter this year, after completing pilot studies. United States sales will follow FDA clearance and CLIA waiver, then we'll open new worldwide markets. In the next 5 years, we intend to grow and introduce Gini to new markets and through new channels, including a home diagnostic device, Gini Home, that we patented already. We raised $2 million to date, mainly from business angels. Most of them are Israeli gynecologists, and we're looking for additional $7 to $10 million in our A round to complete our first go-to-market goals. We achieved all of this with skilled, seasoned, and dedicated team, but I have to thank them. My name is Nimrod Lev. I'm the co-founder and CEO. Thank you for listening, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So please write me. My email is right below.
Many thanks, Nimrod. I would like to invite Ms. Rebecca Sternberg, co-founder and CMO at Aquafit Intimate.
Great. Okay. So my name is Rebecca, and we're actually addressing a huge issue, which is 2 in 5 women across all ages suffer from vaginal discomfort and painful sex. It's not really talked about. It's not talked about between women. It's not talked about between healthcare providers. And key to this issue is that it takes anywhere between 24 to 36 months for a woman to actually get a diagnosis. So we're really excited about Gyntools in terms of the diagnosis side. But we've actually innovated a product that lets women take their sexual wellness into their own hands. And it's a direct-to-consumer, smart, intimate gel stick. So we started about 3 years ago in recognizing that 2 in 5 women from all ages have vaginal discomfort and painful sex. What does that mean? Well, young women between 18 to 30, they suffer from pelvic floor hypertonus, which is actually an involuntary contraction of the pelvic muscles. It doesn't allow them to insert a tampon. It doesn't allow them to insert a finger. It certainly doesn't allow them to get gynecological exams. And also, they cannot have sex. We've seen that this has actually increased in the past 4 or 5 years because young men are coming to their first sexual encounter after watching a lot of porn. And usually the first sexual encounter is getting a little bit more aggressive. And then the woman reacts by having pelvic floor hypertonus. The second group, which is women, we categorize them as blue. It's women in the ages of 30 to 45. They have pH imbalances because of breastfeeding, also multiple sexual partners, and they also have the issue of post-childbirth recovery, which means that they've been stitched up and they really want to come back to sex. And the last group, last but not least, which I'm already in, is menopausal women, where 50% of women will experience vaginal dryness and loss of elasticity because of changes in hormones. The issue is that we started because there's a huge unmet need. If a woman actually has painful sex, she will be sent to use a dilator. You see it on the left. It's made out of plastic. It's semi-rigid. It's not compatible with the female anatomy. It requires lubrication, which leaks all over. But really, the key issue is that it's painful. And if a woman is complaining about pain and she's getting something that causes her pain, there's 70% abandonment. And this is where we started. We developed a smart hydrogel, meaning that it's a hydrogel that is patented and reacts to specific vaginal conditions, vaginal pH, temperature, and muscle contraction. Also remember that the vagina is close to the liver and the kidney and the intestines, so it's a really good active agent delivery area. It's all natural, meaning it's made out of water and plant-based materials. It adapts to the individual anatomy. It's self-lubricating. And because it's soft and has the gel already inside, it's actually a very effective interface with the vaginal walls. So we're delivering different active agents to the vaginal walls. Our first product, Aquafit Peri, which has been on the market for 2 years, is hyaluronic acid and vitamin B. We have a new product coming out, Aquafit Bio, which is for balancing the pH. We're also delivering a whole new approach to intimate self-care. What that means is personal intimate training 2 to 3 times a week, in which a woman takes 5 minutes to herself and can train both her muscles and deliver active agents to the vaginal tissue. The intimate self-care proceeds in self-evaluation of sizing. So a woman inserts her finger or 2 fingers or 3 fingers and knows the size that she needs to begin starting to work with. And in addition, we realized that because women are hesitant to approach healthcare providers for this issue, some have access and some don't have access, we're also developing a digital care space that lets a woman assess her issues, get a personalized report on what it could be, and then go through intimate training that often solves some 50% of the issues having to do with vaginal pain, meaning problems with vaginal elasticity, girth, lubrication, moisture, and pH. We've been funded twice by the Israel Association of Innovation. And we also have had matching funding from a Swedish organization called Case for Her, which advances solutions for self-care for intimate wellness and health. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. I would like to invite Dr. Ronen Shemesh, CSO at FertiProt.
My name is Ronen Shemesh. I have a PhD in genetics and molecular biology, and I'm the CSO of FertiProt, a company trying to solve one of the end issues when we talked about sexual intercourse, there is an outcome of that, and this is, in many cases, fertility. And many couples nowadays suffer from infertility at this point. The thing is that in most cases, even though it is a shared problem between males and females, usually the one that is being treated in any cases is the female. And we have tried to tone down at least some of the painful treatments that are in this field. If you could move to the next slide, please. While most companies share the vision of saving lives, we are actually in the business of creating lives. And FertiProt's vision is to cross through the barrier from more efficient reproduction and increased take-home baby rates for infertile couples. And we have developed a novel device or solution for fertility enhancement and increased chances of a safer and quicker and a healthier pregnancy. Next slide, please. Basically, IVF is very painful, even though no, go back one, please. Even though IVF is a very painful and a very efficient way to conceive nowadays, it's still a very painful, invasive, and dangerous procedure. FertiProt can actually reduce the need for IVF for between 20 to 30% of couples and increase the success rates even for couples that don't have a problem. The product that we have developed is a solution that will increase probability of IUI and sexual conception, as well as an implantation following IVF when this is inevitable. Next slide, please. Nowadays, we are in an age that only about 20% of men in the eligible age have good sperm that could be used as a donor sperm, and about 14% of couples encounter fertility problems. And this is a number that increases both with age and with the times that we're facing nowadays. Next slide, please. And fertility is significantly decreasing. The male factor of fertility is actually dropping very, very rapidly. And it is a major factor including declining sperm count and sperm quality. In China, it was measured in Shanghai between 40,000 men, only 20% of the donors were found eligible for sperm donation. Next slide, please. 1 in every 7, and that's the 14% I talked about, couples encounter fertility problems, and this number, again, increases with age and with progression of times and climate changes and chemical developments and everything. And we know that about 1/3 of the infertility causes are by male factor, about 30% are from female factors, and almost 25 to 30% are from unexplained reasons that could be treated by our treatment as well. Next slide, please. Our innovation solution is actually several drugs that were found in the public domain that are used for other indications that have enhancement of sperm activity, including all sperm and semen factors, such as motility, endurance, penetrability, and acrosome activation that helps the fertilization process itself. Enhancement of intrauterine insemination efficiency and success rates is one of our main and first goals. And then we are going to develop, using the same formulation, a drug-eluting vaginal ring that will increase take-home baby rate with a normal sexual intercourse, because it will secrete agents that are going to increase the function of the sperm into the vaginal cavity and will help the sperm swim faster and have more potential in fertilization. We're actually developing another formulation from the same compound that is going to increase implantation rates, because many of the couples, as we said, about 20 to 30% of the couples could benefit from our solution. The 70% will have to go through IVF, and those we can increase success rates and reduce the number of cycles needed to get conception by increasing implantation. And we can actually allow for further options like gender probability increase and selection and stuff like that, but this is further down the line. Go ahead, please. Why now? Because again, this is a very big unmet need. 1 in 7 couples suffer from infertility. About 80% of males have reduced fertility and reduced potential. Next slide, please. The competitive analysis that we did is actually with technologies aimed at reducing the need for assisted reproduction treatment, and more particularly IVF and ICSI. And our solution is safe and could be self-applied. It could be used at home with no medical intervention. The technology will increase potential for gender selection because there is a difference in the way we can select for male and female sperm to get faster and safer to the fertilization point. And the technology might become an OTC product at the end of the line, so couples could get into a pharmacy and select the product from the shelf and use it at home. Next one, please. The fertility and IVF market is a very big market. Nowadays, it's estimated, it was estimated at 50 billion years by 2017. Now it goes around $65 to $70 billion a year. And we believe that we can take about 15% from the market. Move ahead, please. These are the main founders of the company, but we're now working in collaboration with Next Stage, a cannabis and repurposing related incubator that is now a public company. And we have started a proof of concept clinical trial in Asuta Hospital. Next one, the last one, please. And this is a quote from one of Israel's fertility giants, and he's called Professor Ari Kahana. There is nothing like it, and if there was, fertility specialists would gladly suggest this to patients, and either before going into any conventional treatment or alongside with advanced treatments, maybe be it any state of any art. And thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Ronen. I would like to invite our last speaker to give a pitch, Ms. Hila Shaviv, founder and CEO at Gals Bio.
Hi, everyone. Since I joined relatively late, so I only have one slide to present, and it's already behind me. So recently, it seems that everyone is obsessed about their body state. The huge new market size of wearable devices is one indicator for this trend. However, all of the available wearable devices are limited to non-invasive biomarkers. On the other hand, half of the world population naturally bleed a gold mine of data once a month for a period of 40 years of their life. My name is Hila Shaviv. I'm a biomedical engineer from Caltech and Tel Aviv University, and I'm the founder, the inventor, and CEO of Gals Bio. And in Gals Bio, we are leveraging the monthly bleeding to monitor and screen women's health from the comfort of home, but with the accuracy of a lab. And in order to do that, what we developed is a new kind of disposable internal wearable device, which is used like a regular tampon with an applicator, but it functions like a menstrual cup. On top of that, it is also embedded, it will be embedded with lateral flow technology. So after usage, the user scans the device with the dedicated app in the smartphone, and in minutes, she will be able to see results of various biomarkers and indicators of her health. I would be more than happy to meet you later at the conference in one of the escapes room to present you how Tulipon look like and further explain on our device. Thank you.
Thank you, Hila. Thank you all for your impressive demonstrations that offer a glance to potential implementations in this important field of Femtech. And now for the part we are all here for, I'm honored to invite 4 key persons, or should I say women leaders in the field of women health, to form a special panel and share from their perspective. I would like to invite Ms. Elizabeth Bailey, Ms. Noah Heiman, Ms. Daniella Peri, and Dr. Elinor Erez. Thank you all panel members for being with us today. I will start by asking you all, panel members, to present yourself and your organization, focusing on women's health. Miss Bailey, could you kindly be the first?
Miss Peri?
Miss Bailey.
Okay, sorry. Hi, hello everyone. It's really nice to be here, and thank you so much for organizing this event. I think one of the biggest challenges with women's health is that we're not talking about it publicly enough. So events just like this one are going to be important to changing the whole space. So I'm Elizabeth Bailey. I'm Managing Director of Rhia Ventures. We are a women's health focused venture capital fund. There are not a whole lot of us out there. We're relatively new to the scene, and we are an impact first fund. And I say that because we operate like every other venture capital fund, except that we have a very strong mission, which is to get new product, services, innovations to the most underserved women. And if companies meet that screen, then we're often running to look at the market and different unmet needs in the women's health space. But we want to make sure that we're supporting innovations that can address the needs of all women, not just a select few or those who are affluent. So we, in terms of the things that we focus on, we look at all of women's health, but we have some priority areas that we think have been neglected. One is maternal health. I'm happy to talk more about that. The other is contraception. And then there's a whole range of other areas that we call high impact reproductive health areas that we think there are some really interesting innovations and are excited to be deploying capital in this space that has been really underserved for far too long.
Thank you. Miss Peri?
Now it's me.
Now it's you, yeah. Thanks.
Too excited. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It feels a bit weird to be on a panel because I'm so used to being on the pitch side, pitching my vision, my mission, what I want to do, and kind of getting capital. So to give you a bit of a back, so I'm beyond grateful for being here, and especially speaking about Yoppie on Women's International Day. So to give you a bit of background about myself, I'm the founder and CEO of Yoppie, that is a personalized menstrual care platform where we help women access and understand their menstrual cycle with educational content, physical products. I founded the company back in 2016 when I realized that the menstrual care market hadn't been innovated for decades, and there weren't enough options when it comes to good quality organic period products. So after speaking to a lot of our friends and asking them, do you know what goes into your tampons? Do you know what a pad is made of? We totally understood that the organic period care market hadn't been tapped into. And a bit like who I am, I just had an amazing idea and I just went for it. So we coded our first website back in 2016. We developed our first organic period box subscription and we launched. And since then, I've probably been crazy enough to not give up. But in 2019, I successfully secured some seed funding to take my MVP of an organic subscription box to the next stage. So what Yoppie is today, as I said, is that personalized menstrual care companion. We ask women a set of questions based on her individual period, her individual flow, and then we recommend her a set of organic period care products. A week ago, we launched our second product category, which is PMS supplements, which is developed with a world-class nutritionist, all based on vitamins, minerals, and herbs to help women tackle her individual PMS symptoms. To give you a bit more about what we're doing, so we are based in the UK, where we're currently learning how to scale a brand and a company, which is super exciting. This year we're looking on scaling into Europe. I'm originally from Sweden, so we are going live in Sweden in the next couple of weeks, which is super exciting. And our vision is super clear. We want to build an intimate well-being platform where we combine great physical products that tackles women's menstrual health. So actually recognizing menstrual health for what it is. It's not just about the bleed. It's about, you know, understanding your body, your hormones, how that impacts you, and combining that with great content where she can learn about herself, science-backed content with products that are letterbox friendly and convenient delivered to you.
Great. Thank you, Daniella. Dr. Erez, can you be the next, please?
Yes, of course. Hi, good evening to everyone. Thanks for inviting me. It's really exciting to hear all about those nice and brilliant and exciting initiatives. So thanks a lot. So my name is Elinor Erez, and I'm the VP of R&D. Function of Ferring Pharmaceutical. We are based basically in Israel. Ferring Pharmaceutical is a Swiss company. The headquarters are located next to Geneva. And the local function basically, which is located in Be'er Tuvia, in Israel, we are responsible for all biological aspects, basically of the development, the research and development of molecule, and we'll talk a bit about the woman's health, obviously. I could say for sure that Ferring puts for herself as an ambition and a vision to be the leader in reproductive medicine and maternal health. I mean, basically that's our main focus. We do have some other aspects or focus area. However, the strategy is to be the leader in RMMH, which is reproductive medicine and maternal health, and to be a leader in some other aspects that we will not talk about today. Basically, we launched a few products. I mean, for those that are familiar with the Ferring, we know that we have maybe the old product that are urinary based, and then now basically we're looking into the future, and we have launched about 4 years ago our recombinant follicular stimulating hormone, which is produced, I would say, in a recombinant way here in Israel. We've been leading clinical trials worldwide. The first one was in Europe, and that was the one that was approved as the first one. We just completed a clinical study in China and in Japan and Pan-Asia. And the clinical trial in the US should also be completed by the end of the year. So we expect also to have a submission there. So obviously that it's our company has a lot of facility and I would say access into the commercial world, except for the R&D, obviously. And we have M&S, I would say, in more than 110 basically countries worldwide. If we're looking at the research, and maybe then we'll talk about it later, but for sure those areas that I heard, and unfortunately I couldn't hear all pitches, I'll be happy to get the slides, but obviously that those are really relevant for our research portfolio and for the early development, which is something that we're working really hard on that. So thanks a lot for being here. I'm looking forward for the questions.
Thanks, Elinor. Ms. Heiman?
Yes, hi. Thank you so again, this is my first time being invited to one of these panels, so really thank you. Actually, I started my career in Ferring. I was a medical representative in Ferring, and it's like 13 years ago, where we promoted drospirenol, nirin, vasopressin for incontinence in children. So it's like closing the gap again. But so my name is Heiman, and I'm the business unit head for women healthcare in Bayer, Israel. And I've joined Bayer in 2018 as the product manager. And a few months ago, I was promoted to be the business unit head. And I have to say that I came from a whole different area of expertise. I was in the marketing field for, as I mentioned, 13 years now, but I was mainly working in very scientific worlds like hemato-oncology and neurology. And then when I came to women health in Bayer, I really fell in love with this area of expertise. What Bayer really does is, I think I am able to say with very proud that we are leading company in women healthcare, both in Israel and abroad. Bayer is a German company, a pharmaceutical company for over 150 years now, with a really substantial legacy in women health, specifically in contraception use. This year, May 9th, will be the day that will mark 60 years for the first launch of the pill, which was actually a Bayer product as well. So we have been in the market with contraception since the first combined oral contraception, which was called Enoflar. Those back in the days, it contains 150 micrograms of vanilla estradiol in comparison to the pill now, which contains only 20 micrograms. So we came a long way from then. And all of those years, Bayer was a leading company, an innovative company with the first to market products such as the first low-dose estradiol, the first natural estrogen pill, the first pill with a new progesterones in the market. So all the time we really were ahead of the market, and I'm really proud of this. So today we have the portfolio, which is including combined oral contraception. We have major brands in Israel. We have what we call the drospirenone family, which is Yaz and Yasmin Plus, which contains also folic acid. For women in the fertile years, it's very important to also have the supplement of folic acid. We have Claire, which is a pill that contains natural estrogen. And we also have a big portfolio of IUSs, intrauterine systems, hormonal IUSs, Mirena, which was the first one to be launched in 1990. And now in the new millennium, we launched 2 new products, which were called Janes and Kalina, which are smaller IUSs, more suitable for young women before giving birth, which again was an innovative thinking at the time when we launched those products. And we also have one of our oldest products, which is a copper IUD, which is called Novati. So today we are working as a portfolio a business unit, and with the vision that we really pursued women's needs in contraception. So if it's an IUS, if it's a combined pill, we have older pills, we have multiple components, combinations, etc. So I'm very happy to be here, and hope you have some nice questions for me.
Thank you, Noah. So let's start with you. You were talking about the first pill and the way we have gone through that. So in order to understand what is the source for the International Women's Day focusing on women's health care, could you please start with describing what is that gap, the spoken gap that needs to be fixed?
Okay, so I have to say, hands down, that there are a couple of gaps. One particular thing that I really think that needs to be more pushed in Israel and all over the world, but specifically in Israel, is the fact that, I don't know if you know it, but contraception is not reimbursed by the health basket, only for teenagers. And yeah, you can say it's only like 30-35 shekels a month, but for some women, this is something that needs to be included in the health basket. If you're talking about IUSs, which is a much preferred option for many women because it does contain estrogen, so not just all the comfort, but there are women who cannot tolerate the pill. It can come up to 500 or 800 shekels plus the insertion, and this is not covered by the reimbursement process. And also just now we got the results of the latest reimbursement process, and we submitted Mirena actually for heavy menstrual bleeding, because 1 in 3 women in Israel or in the world experiences heavy period, which lasts 8 days. causing sometimes anemia, fatigue, and social distancing, and very emotional stress. However, unfortunately, it was the second year that we submitted it, and the budget was so small, and still we couldn't get included in the health basket. Another thing that I think, so this is unfortunate because I think women's health in general in Israel, in the reimbursement process, I come from the oncology field where it was like, for sure, you have health because it's a life-saving product. But here, when it comes to women's health and contraception, it's considered a lifestyle choice or more of a luxury and not something to be really considered as a basic product or basic need for women. And this is unfortunate in my perspective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you were talking about reimbursement and you were mentioning the social distancing also. So I would like to turn to Ms. Bailey, to Elizabeth. So could you please answer the same question and elaborate on this gap between the need and reality? And you and in Rhia Ventures, you deal with healthcare, women healthcare, but also the social aspect. So could you please refer to that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think just to sort of pick up on the issue of contraception, so my colleague often says, if you described a business opportunity where you were serving half the world's population with a chronic condition that, lasts for 30 years, most investors would jump on that opportunity. But that has not, unfortunately, been the case. That is contraception. It's exciting, actually, to just be connecting with Bear and Ferring, two leaders in terms of large corporates building their women's health franchises, whereas a lot of the multinationals have unfortunately gone the other direction. So I do think that this issue of reimbursement, some of the regulatory challenges of actually running these trials to bring new contraception products to market, they create barriers for investors because they make it that much harder to invest and then generate a return. But I do, I think that women's voices are becoming louder and more powerful, and they are asking for more options. I mean, so when we just look at the contraceptive space, women want, we're excited that there are hormonal options, but we're looking for hormone-free options, things that we can use on demand, things that are women-controlled. And so I think, when you go shopping for a myriad of consumer products, you have so much choice. And yet in the contraception space, there need to be way more options because of all of the known side effects and just preferences of women of kind of how they want to manage their fertility. And so I think that the more women demand more choices, not just things that are good enough, but things that actually delight women, things that they want, where they can really take agency over their own fertility, I think is going to be so important. And there, companies like Bear have certainly contributed to the innovation, but I think in terms of new startups, there's been a dearth of investment in this space. And so I think that's where some of the gaps lie. And I know we're short on time, so I'll kind of stop there.
Yeah. No, but speaking with you as a managing director at a venture capital firm, you selected at Rhia to target specifically startups that promise to revolutionize women's health in different ways. So can you please, say something about this selection? Why did you, choose this field?
Yeah. Well, one, because I'm a woman, and because I see the needs of women. And honestly, I don't think there are enough women in venture capital positions making investment decisions. And I think that's part of the reason there hasn't been as much investment. But when you look at the fundamentals of this market, you know, where I as an investor want to go, I want to go where there are areas of huge unmet need, where we can improve the quality of life, improve health outcomes. So this women's health is ripe for innovation and opportunity. And you don't necessarily want to go where where all of the venture capitalists are going. From where I sit, I see huge unmet need, a really exciting pipeline. I mean, we just heard from these incredible entrepreneurs that are brave and jumping in, trying to solve some of these problems. We have a great opportunity where not a lot of funds are playing today to help build these companies to get new products on the market. It is crazy to me when people talk about women's health as a niche market. We are not a niche market. We are half the world's population. We have distinct needs. And we need an engine of innovation like venture capital to help spur that innovations and support entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So huge unmet need, and I would like to ask Elinor the same question, but from a global pharma company's point of view. So Elinor, could you kindly walk us through Ferring, ideation and practice referring to this unique arena?
So if I can build a bit about what Elizabeth said, I totally agree. And if we're talking about the gaps, and before we're talking about the opportunities, I mean, I could see that, yes, it is considered as a niche, basically. However, part of it is also depending on, say, on us, on women. And here I could give you an example. We're running a study on endometriosis, and the recruitment rate is so low because because women basically that experiencing that pain, doesn't even know that they're suffering from endometriosis, which is crazy if you come to think about it. So I think that part of it, this gap is not being aware and not being exposed and not talking about it, as was mentioned before, and not bringing that into the proper discussion. And I think that physicians are looking also on the other side of it, because if a woman complains, then well, she has a headache, she has a stomach ache, etc., etc. We don't have to go into that, but I think that it's a real issue, because even when we come to say, okay, we would like to address such an unmet need and to come up with some kind of innovative treatment for endometriosis, it's also really hard for us as a corporate, basically, for example, to hire and to recruit those people. I think that's something that needs to be for both ways, that needs to be improved from both ways, also from the physician and also from the women's, basically.
So this is the difficulty is that like a corporate or big pharma company faces.
Yes.
Yes. And Daniella, as a startup, Yoppie is focused on women's health products and only women's health products. Could you give us a glance into Yoppie's launching and scaling process? What advice would you give to a Femtech startup?
So the first advice, and I give this to, it doesn't matter if it's a Femtech startup or any startup, any person that has a solution to a problem that could turn into a viable business, just do it, just try it, start speak about it, do the things that is required, fantasize about a brand name, do all the steps that is required in a business planning, and take it from there to see, speak to friends to see is it viable. Predominantly in Femtech, I think echoing a lot of the things that has been said today, banging the drum that it's not a niche market. It's a half of the population. It is real problems we want to solve. We didn't make them up. We didn't find them in a spreadsheet or in a report. We might did, but a lot of the problems that kind of built a solution around is probably a personal problem, or a problem that is very dear to your heart, or around you. And I think echoing Rhia Ventures, we need more venture capital who kind of fuels the innovations, because Femtech, all the Femtech startups that are out there will not succeed on year one or on day one. We need to be given the remit to kind of test and fail and learn and pivot the same way, all the fintechs and mobility ventures has been fueled with capital, and they've been learning on the ride. And I think we need to give that fuel to the Femtech industry. And yet, we read articles that the Femtech industry is so hot and booming, yet we haven't seen that much capital being allocated to it yet. So I think there's so much more opportunity in the space. I think, every time I see a competitor or a new brand coming up, I just look from it with real pride and real oh my God, yes, there is someone else really trying to tap into this amazing opportunity from just, another angle, from another beachhead approach. So I think it's coming down to capital. I also think there is so much to collaborate with the bigger kind of corporates that have the strength, that has the research, that has the, the data, combining that with the eager of startups that comes from a completely other way of looking at markets. So how can we turn ideas that are already existing to a D2C model, or how can we make them more consumer friendly, or how can we reach more consumers on the platforms, etc. So I think it's combining one word, not giving up, and just feel proud, speaking loudly about the problems, not seeing them as something shameful. They exist, and rather than seeing them as problems, it's like superpowers. So we need to educate women how to live with them.
Thank you. Noah, you mentioned before different products, product for pathological conditions such as uterine fibroids and endometriosis, but on the other hand, a product for contraception. So I would like to ask you about the effect of modern women requirements in combination with today's technologies. There are different technologies such as combination projects and AI-based technologies. So what is the effect of the combination of modern women requirements and the new technologies about the effect on product design?
Okay. So I just want to say that, okay, you talked to, I'm going earlier to the gaps, okay? And all of you guys working in the Femtech industry, you need to understand also the important part that the HCPs play in this role, okay? One of our big challenges with approaching women or approaching HCPs is to convince them that not all pills are the same and not all contraception are the same. And they need to really figure out what are those women's needs. Ask them the questions. What we call it debulking the fine conversation in contraception, because women can have hidden dissatisfaction which are not brought to the surface because everything is fine, but if you are digging much further, you can really understand, okay, she's okay with her pill, but she suffers from headaches, or she has dysmenorrhea, or her bleeding is very heavy, or whatever, but I need to uncover this. And unfortunately, a lot of HCPs in the gynecology industry, it's a very hectic, busy workload. They have 5 minutes per patient. They don't have the time to really do those digging and discoveries. And so we are now trying to see how we can close the gap on the conversation and the counseling between HCPs and patients. So, for example, we are now in the process of launching an application and a new app, which is called My iOS, but it will be called a different name in Israel. And it tackles a big obstacle in the iOS industry, which is the first 3 to 6 months after the insertion, when women are really have some spotting and bleeding, irregular bleedings, and can really be discouraged of the use of the IUS, although it's a very fantastic idea of fetal forget contraception with gives the woman a lot of independence and, of course, highest efficacy possible. So, and we know that ATPs do not have the time or the patience to talk to women about, okay, those 3 months will be more challenging to you, but come see me if you have some bleeding, etc. So this application is something that will follow the women around. She will upload the dates of her spotting, bleeding, amenorrhea days, and after 3 months of putting some data inside, she will get an output of which is an algorithm that was developed by Bayer, where she can have a prediction about the next 6 months. So something that will reassure the side of the patient and the side of the ATP, because it's a major obstacle when we are talking about IUSs, especially to young women, because ATPs have this misconception that young women will not be eligible for an IUS because they will not tolerate those 3 to 6 months of spotting or bleeding or irregular bleeding. I think that we are doing a lot we are doing a lot of social media campaigns, raising awareness to variety of contraception, waiting room cards, QR codes to have patients review some questions before they go inside the doctor, in order for him or her, the doctor, to understand what kind of a lifestyle does she live. Is she a flight attendant? Is she a student? Is she a waitress? How important it is for her not to get pregnant, because all of these questions will really make it more easier for him to fit her the right contraception. Because again, the pill is not for everyone, the IUS is not for everyone, the ring is not for everyone. And yeah, we promote IUSs and contraception and COCs, but we do want women to have the best possible option for them. So yes, we do a lot of work on the consumer side as well.
So yeah, so new technologies can assist and to understand what the characteristic of consumer and what really can help actually. So speaking about new technologies, I would like to ask you, Elinor, while considering Ferring's ART, assisted reproductive technology, can you share with us your perspective regarding R&D innovation using new technologies and actionable data processing, for example, in the context of fertility?
So ART is basically, I would say, the majority or the highest priority within the RMMH portfolio, and basically we're interested in all stage. I think that the first stage, the ovarian stimulation, or the follicular stimulation, basically, that's a step that I think that if you're looking on what is available, we could all agree that there's plenty of options for the physician, for the patient to come and to ask for it, and there's a lot of options. However, still the success rate of the pregnancy is still 30%. I mean, we cannot ignore that. I mean, despite the variety that exists for the stimulation step, still the success rate is pretty low. So I think that the highest focus is obviously to increase the success rate, and obviously that we're looking, as I said, at the first path of the stimulation, but also on the luteal phase, and also on basically on the implantation step, because that's something that if you're looking also on the research point of view, those steps were not studied enough, I would say. I mean, the whole focus, and we can look at the last 20 years, were focused mainly on the follicular stage and not on the luteal and the implantation. It is still not clear the interfaces between the endometrium to basically to the fetus. So there's a lot of interaction, a lot of happening, and it's not clear about what is the role of the immune system and what is the role of all kind of cytokines and all kinds of small molecules that could affect and increase basically the implantation rate. So that's, I would say, one thing that we're focusing on and investing a lot of research, I would say. The second thing is basically we feel that is missing is the selection of the embryo. we feel that that's something that is done basically based on the expertise of the embryologist that is there in the clinical center that says this one looks good. It gets a number from 1 to 10. If you're aware of I guess that you're all aware of the process. If it's a 7, if it's an 8, it goes back into the woman. And if it's a 5, it goes somewhere else. However, we still feel that this segregation basically and the decision of what goes in and what will be basically the success rate of that oocyte, sorry. Basically, this one is, sorry for the blastocyst, sorry. It's been a long day, yeah. So that is still missing. So here we think, and we're also looking with this, partnering with some other startup company that has all kinds of algorithms that could basically predict the success rate of specifically or specific blastocyst and look for different, I would say, phenotypic based on scans of the process to give a higher success rate. And I think that this one is basically covered also in our clinical study. I mean, now that we're planning or developing a new clinical study, we make sure that we have all the state of the art. You're talking about data processing to make sure that we will once retrieve the data and look into to what's there to see if we can learn from that, obviously. Except for that, I could also say that we're also looking on other interaction, which I think that are still, I would say, in a very, very early research as the microbiome. We think that the microbiome has a huge potential and it's still is not clear if that's the cause or it's just the causality that we're talking about, obviously, the microbiome that exists in the vagina, and we're talking about disease. I mean, BV is there, it needs to be treated. However, there are some evidence that it could also affect the fertility. And as I said, it's not clear if that's the cause or if it's just a matter of causality that you can learn from that. So that's something that we're also basically focusing on. And we're looking worldwide, I would say. There aren't a lot of companies, but we're still, I mean, mainly with the universities and the partnership in Sweden and in Denmark that has a lot of focus on that.
Thank you. Thank you for this interesting information. And also, you know, for letting us know about the thoughts for future, you know. I would like to ask you all, as we are rushing after a lot of time, well, and please answer in a, you know, short answer, one sentence. So if you had to choose, what could you indicate as the arena or as the area or attitude of greatest opportunity and maximum impact, considering women's health product development, what would you take? So Elizabeth, could you be the first one to answer the question?
Yeah, it's hard to choose just one or even a few, but I would say I see a lot of opportunity in leveraging AI and machine learning to help predict adverse events, specifically in maternal health, but also just generally in personalized medicine. And then a very specific area that I think is ripe for innovation, which I think was just mentioned from Elinor, but is endometriosis. From diagnosis to treatment, you know, sort of pick anywhere on that continuum and you can make a difference with innovation there. So we're excited and looking at that space really closely.
Many thanks. Noah, can you share your opinion?
I actually do relate to what Elizabeth said about endometriosis. Actually, Bayer do have a drug, Isabel. Unfortunately, in latest years, we do not promote it proactively. But I noticed that this, again, a huge unmet need in endometriosis. I think that Elinor talked about, I don't know who mentioned it, that women go through 10, 12 years of misdiagnosed with a lot of symptoms. So this is an area that I think, and 1 in 10 women suffer from endometriosis. So I think this is a really huge unmet need and a huge platform for development in this area.
Thank you. Yes. So, Elinor, what do you think about this question of, of greatest opportunity?
I think it's hard to choose. I agree with Elizabeth, but I do think that in the ART, eventually we'll have to look in the implantation because still a lot is missing there. And also, I hate to say that, but I'm still looking on the ART. I mean, if we're talking about fertility, I still think that there is a lot of missing in the male infertility because women undergo a lot of cycles and a lot of treatment that doesn't necessarily needs to be there. And the amount of research available is so low. I mean, that's something and I think that the impact will be valuable.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Elinor. Daniella?
Oh,
what would be your answer?
Yeah, hard question for me, Saul. But as a consumer-facing brand, like connecting a lot with consumers, I think the opportunity is, educating women, like educating about their bodies, what is happening from, throughout their reproductive age, helping them to describe symptoms, help them communicate with their doctors, help giving them the tools to kind of take charge of their own health, I think is the biggest opportunity, and that's where we can solve a lot of problems.
Thank you, Daniella. Thank you all panelists. Thank you, Elizabeth and Daniella and Noah and Elinor, for dedicating precious time and sharing with us today your inspirational stories and ideas. So thank you all, and see you next Women's Day.
We see this, the issue of sort of painful sex. What we're also finding is that from the medical perspective, because they don't really, it falls in between disciplines, they also don't educate about it. And when we started Aquafit, we started asking women if gynecologists ask them how they're experiencing sex. In the US, a gynecologist is not allowed to ask a woman if she's experiencing painful sex.
Really?
Because it's considered not politically correct. Exactly. In Israel, I can say it's somewhere in between. We've had a lot of women work with us who are in the military, and no military doctor acquiesces that women can have painful sex.
No.
So this is so essential. And it was shocking to me that even one of our investors from the Case for Her, which is this wonderful Swedish organization, she called me up and she said, look, I just had emergency surgery for prolapse. And my doctor never recommended for me for my recovery to do intimate training. He just said, finger your stitches and you'll have some painful sex afterwards, but no big deal. So this was really some of our motivation to go to a direct-to-consumer play on this, to educate women about all of the different causes and to do self-care. I do think that what's also interesting is that many women even drop the issue even before self-care. So it's also a lot of education that there are many things that we can do that can help ourselves, but we really do need to be aware of our bodies. So it's really difficult to see.
Yeah, I think it maybe when I listen to all of you, I'm thinking, okay, you probably also need female founders to start a company like this, and you need to be at a certain age group. Exactly. I'm now also in menopause.
Absolutely.
And when you're in menopause, you think, this is ridiculous. Why did I do any tests when I was 40?
Exactly.
To find out my precise hormones? But
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. But you first need to get into it to think about it.
Absolutely. And the same thing goes for, look, we're also discovering, and this is really sort of sad, as that many women after 50 are giving up on sex. And so the cycle is, many women make it to a gynecologist and they're completely closed because they've been out of a relationship for a few years, and the vagina is a use it or lose it organ. And so you will lose elasticity at a certain age if you don't use it. I mean,
nobody knows about this.
And nobody knows about this. And the flip side is that the men have like Viagra, and they'll leave their wives and go to a younger woman, or they'll leave their partners. And then many men, we're seeing large numbers of women who've actually given up on a sex life, which is also ridiculous.
Well, Rebecca, you were talking about, you know, the time window, and it's not just about sex. It's about, I mean, Elinor, do you recognize this time window as a factor in clinical trials, in, you know, in R&D of women health products? Or Hila?
What? Sorry. What was the question? Sorry.
I'm just asking. I mean, if this time window is a factor when, you know, when dealing with the research and development of women health products.
Is it time? Is it factor?
Time window? Yeah.
Well, of course, because I can say, first of all, I wanted to add to what was said before. This is my second company in women's health. My first company, I developed a new kind of tampon that treats dysmenorrhea. It never got to the market, and I can tell you, it was a struggle of 10 years with ignorance. There is totally no academic research, and it was a really, really tough journey. And after stopping with the first company, now I started a second company, Girls Bio, that I presented today. And we are still struggling again, because like basic material, like what are the forces within the vaginal cavity? What is the average diameter? What are the variance on the sizes, the length? Like simple data that I need as a biomedical engineer to develop my device, I cannot obtain because there is none. I'm not talking about high and sophisticated biomarkers, the fact that we actually need to find the biomarkers within the menses, because nobody ever took menses and actually researched what's in it. Half of the world population experienced this for 40 years of their life, and it only goes to waste. Why? Like what I like to say is that by the time we'll finish, men would be envious of us women, that we actually have this affliction, and this is how it should be. Like we
this
are
in the what I thought, Nina. When you
exactly,
I thought you were changing the game.
Exactly.
Like every month you can check.
Hila, I think that what's interesting now, in distinction from where you were 10 years ago with your previous company, is that the trend now for younger people is self-monitoring and self-reporting. And so what we've done, even on this, you're absolutely right, there's a lot of missing information about what, you know, even girth or the size of the vaginal opening. And what we've done in Aquafit is we've created, it will be on the market in about a month and a half. We've just created questions that a woman can answer, and then she can finger herself and measure herself and report it. And what we're doing is, by asking women to report for themselves, we're actually getting so much information from the women, not from academic studies, from women who are basically giving you very, very limited basic information, but are happy to report to you if they get something back for it. So for instance, even with self-reporting, we noticed different correlations and causations as a result of that. But for instance, we were seeing women at 28 who were saying they're suffering from vaginal dryness and menopausal symptoms. And then we suddenly asked them, well, are you taking anything else? And they were like, yeah, we've been on the pill for 10 years. So then we began asking other women these questions. So if you need data for your development, I really highly recommend reaching out to women and having women self-evaluate or self-report issues that are essential for your development. We've been doing that. Dame has been doing that on their vibrators. They ask women to report what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And this is something new because it wasn't really easy to develop 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and it's really easy to develop today. So I think that this is actually...
We're working under Helsinki committee, and this is for us. I consider this as we're a medical device, so it's not that I can go and ask women questions.
But I think, Hila, that this is actually the change, that you can continue with the Helsinki, but that available to us is other data sources that may not be medical grade, right? They may not be medical grade. They may not help you with your medical regulation, but they will help you with the design development. And it's just incredible how women, when given the option to report, use it. Like, we're hearing things. We started doing it with audio, and women, would talk for 6 minutes about our product. Now, it really wasn't about our product. It was about their sex life and their fear that they won't have one. I mean, they would record 6-minute audios. Who gives that kind of report on, I don't have any device in my home that I would talk about for 6 minutes. So this is a population that's really seeking an interface in which to communicate with. And I think that this is it has nothing to do with not meeting medical regulation, but it's a different path to behavioral and experiential data.
And it could basically be used for personal medicine eventually. I mean, I think that that's the whole idea. And I totally agree with your approach, because we're seeking also for that. I mean, to learn about the patient, to learn about the needs, basically. I mean, does it take beyond basically the drug or the device or whatever it is? Because we learn a lot from that. I totally agree with you. I mean, I think that that's basically the basis for personal medicine, which is the highlight, I would say. I mean, the biggest trend that we're experiencing, and it's a promising area, I would say.
And I think that beyond just personalizing, I think, Elinor, the same thing that you're experiencing with women not joining your trials, right? Because they're not reporting on it. What we've found, and that's also something that's new, is that it's not enough to just self-diagnose or assess. What we're doing is we're liaisoning as she's working with it. That is, we're understanding who she is. And for instance, if a 24-year-old reports that when she's doing intimate training, she's having pain, I can say to her, look, I know you're 24 and vaginismus is highly treatable. Why don't you continue working with it? Like, don't give up. But if she's menopausal, then the news is not so great, right? Because this is a chronic condition. So the situation of personalization is not just about diagnosis. It's also about adherence. And it's also about helping a woman understand where she gets stuck and where she needs adherence. And this is also something new in all fields. Like, MyFitnessPal, I record my diet every day, okay? But they don't tell me, listen, you're cheating twice a week, change your behavior. And this is something new that you can do, right? So it's personalized and behavioral.
I would also think for you, Rebecca, that doctors are great, and especially female doctors. My best friend is a general practitioner. She would be the first one to actually
it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, because for many doctors who we've been with, some have been great and some have been, we solve their problem and then the woman doesn't come back and they're losing money off of us. That is, if a woman complains about pain and we solve it, then they're losing a doctor's visit. It's really, we've seen that side of it as well.
But that's maybe more the US than Europe, I think.
I think, yes. It's more
because
US
they're getting paid for patients, so they would love it to get solved.
It's more US than Europe. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's sort of upsetting, right? But it is what it is.
I think we are being called back. I saw
all right.
Yes, our carriage is going to turn into a pumpkin. Nice hearing all of you. Thank you.
Actually conceive and use the fertility, it's a lot harder. So ways like what we developed, for instance, could be a lot easier. Make it a lot easier when once you want to give up contraception and start working on reproduction, it's a lot easier to do that. That's one thing. Another angle in this case is once you have contraceptions, you can actually enjoy other things a lot easier. So, and I believe that there are also illnesses that until a few years ago were not even common knowledge, like endometriosis, that actually harm fertility and could be utilized and could be also treated by both ways. Endometriosis is actually a hormonal sickness that prevents fertility, but could also be prevented by a very, very consumable and narrow and effective use of contraceptions. So I think everything is intertwined and go together.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ronen. Maybe somebody from the audience, Sharon? Yeah.
Yes, I think actually for Ronen to explain a little bit more about the science of what his FertiProt does.
Okay, so basically we've discovered several known drugs that are used for other indications that we found some evidence in the literature and some lab work that show that their many different benefits is that they actually make sperm swim faster. There are many different aspects of that. The spermatozoa is actually planned to remain silent and dormant for ejaculation. So most of the systems are aimed to keep it with no energy expenditure. And we found that these specific drugs can actually release and block this system. And once they're used on already ejaculated sperm, they can actually increase the motility of the sperm by up to 200%. They can actually prevent or stop the prevention of the acrosome activation, which allows the sperm to penetrate and fertilize the egg. And we decided to utilize this in different ways. One of the ways is to create a solution that could be used for IUI, intrauterine insemination, a method that is used before IVF because it's a lot less expensive and a lot less abusive and health risky. So basically...
Oh, sorry, we need to finish.
Okay.
But it was really interesting, and thank you all for coming, and I hope you'll join our next event as well. And thank you very much for discussing this very interesting issue, and good night.